I am Jennifer Idle, the marketing director for Avelo, and also an avid scuba diving professional with a career in photography and filming. So let's dive in this evening. If you have any questions, be sure and put them in the comments and I'll get to them in the chat feed there. And I look forward to seeing what questions you have as they come up. If I don't get to it right away, I'll get to it by the end of the presentation, webinar questions. I will be chatting with our guests. I've got a few things that I'm curious to see what their experience were like, as do you. And thank you. Thank you for joining. I'd like to introduce Ingrid Martinson. She is calling in from Denver today and is a global traveler as a marine biologist. And she was the 2024 Our World Underwater Scholarship Society recipient. As part of that, Avelo gave her a certification for our recreational Avelo diver specialty certification. And she completed that in Oahu with Travel Divers Oahu. Did I get that right?
Yeah, Oahu Travel Divers.
Oahu Travel Divers. There goes the dyslexia. So thank you for joining us, Ingrid.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Sarafina Vasilda, who is Diver 1000. Woohoo! She calls in from Dive Friends Bonaire as their creative marketeer. And I believe you also do a bit of underwater photography. You're getting into that. As a fellow photographer, I can tell you I really appreciate diving Avelo with my camera. So
It does make it a lot easier.
And we have Kenny Dyal joining us from Florida, I believe in the Orlando area with Sweetwater Scuba. He is the host of Scuba Diving Channel and Scuba Diving Podcast. You can find that on YouTube, and recently launched a really big video about Avelo and is a new Avelo diver himself. Thank you guys for joining. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves a bit more as dive professionals? Kenny?
Okay, I'm first. All right, I'll break the ice here. Yeah, been at Disney for just about 20 years, taking guests from all over the world, safety, and even take Mickey Mouse diving sometimes. Started a dive shop and sold it in 2016, and then went on to do content and start a podcast. Became a course director for NAUI and a couple of children's books, and mostly do social media content. I do help other brands with their content, and then mainly do the podcast. So that's where we are. And speaking of social content, if anyone's been on social media the last couple of days, you've probably seen the Avelo one, and it's brought out the fireworks.
I look forward to hearing more about that tonight.
Absolutely.
Sarafina, do you want to chat about what you do at Dive Friends?
Yes, as the creative marketeer, I do the social media, the website, keeping up to date and stuff like that. And I got the chance to dive Avelo not too long ago, and I'm a fairly new diver overall, so it was I really liked it.
And Ingrid, we've been chatting back and forth for some time now.
Yeah. Well, my diving journey started in 2019, and shortly after, I got involved in scientific diving during my undergrad. And as Jennifer mentioned, I just finished this year-long scholarship, the Our World Underwater Scholarship, where I got to try Avelo, really get a wide range of experiences in the dive industry, a lot of it also being scientific diving. And so I'll continue diving, professionally and as a science diver.
Awesome. Can you talk to me about how you got involved or included with us at Avelo in diving and wanting to dive Avelo? How did you hear about it?
I got connected through the Our World Underwater Scholarship Society. So we had a connection with Avelo, and Avelo graciously sponsored a RAD certification for me. So that's how I first heard about it. And then, of course, got a little bit more information when I attended DEMA last year in November. So that was kind of how I got introduced.
And you were certified this spring or early winter in Oahu
Yes, in January.
in January. And you wrote a blog entry about your experience
I did,
as
yeah.
well. So we'll be sure to include that in the comments when we post this video online. Awesome. Sarafina, you became Diver 1000. Could you share what the first breath was like diving the Avelo system and how that felt?
It was very different because I'd heard about it when I started working at Dive Friends and people were talking about it. And I was thinking to myself, like, how different can it actually be? But then I really went for it. And then it's very easy to put it simply. You just kind of go with it. And I enjoyed it. It was very easygoing and easy to get a hang of. And yeah, I liked it.
Dive Friends Bonaire is the first international Avelo Dive Center. And we just started making the Avelo system available to the public in October of 2023. So this is still relatively new, especially to the public market. So it's pretty cool that you got to dive at Dive Friends Bonaire. They got that recognition as the first international Avelo Dive Center. Also 997, right, 998, 999 were at Catalina Diver Supply and Abyss Scuba Diving, which was our first continental US, and then Abyss was the first over there. So our first 3 dive centers got those 3 certifications. That was pretty fun.
It's really cool.
Kenny, you test gears for thousands of viewers and listeners, and as a course director, you have a lot of experience teaching divers and teaching instructors as well. What put Avelo on the map for you?
Everything that I do is about growing the industry and moving things forward and innovation. I also work at Epcot, Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. And so I've always been, I'm a big Walt Disney fan. I like innovation. I like things that improves lives and makes them better. And that's what attracted me to Avelo. I think I was like a lot of people in the beginning. Honestly, even up until I tried it, I was skeptical. And it's just it looks complicated. And it looks like there's more to it. You look and think batteries and this and that, and it's this whole other until I tried it. And then I did it and I dove it. And then I dove it a second dive and a third dive. And then we went back and did some pretty heavy filming where I was truly using it. No longer thinking about the mechanics of it, but running around like a crazy person with a camera. And that's when it really hit me. And I have so much respect for all of you, and Aviad for really just like, if you look at the thing, you're like, who on earth went through all the trouble to invent this and make it so simple and so foolproof? And it just exhausted me looking at this and thinking you had to come up with standards with the training agencies and all this stuff. And then like, you did it. It's done. It's out there. We have it now. And it's kind of like, who went through the trouble of inventing a cell phone that you can talk to people through the air? But it's here now. And so we have it. And I'm just so impressed that someone did that, because I know that wasn't easy. And so I'm excited. I like anything that makes things better. So here I will always do that. I'm very opposed to being stuck in our old ways. I don't like that at all. And I think norms need to be challenged, but sometimes it's just about making it easier, because a lot of people don't scuba dive. There's 6 million active divers on the planet. It's like, what, 2.5 million in the US? That's not much. And so somebody that can crack through that, and maybe, hey, it's not, you don't have to have all this heavy, hard stuff. You know, you don't have to struggle the whole time. Or those of you that are comfortable, it can be a little less work. I got a truck right now with my name on it in my driveway. I literally rushed home from a dive to be here. It's full of heavy tanks and weights and all that bulky stuff. I still have to deal with that here and whenever we're done, by the way. So that's kind of like hanging out there, and so it's a lot of work and a lot of hassle. It cuts down the hassle, it cuts down the barriers, makes things easy, and it's innovation, and I just think it's really cool, and anything that moves us forward, I'm gonna get behind.
We got a whole lot of different groups here. That's exciting. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm excited for your experience and your introduction to the system. Um, Serafina, you said you're new to diving. So that's kind of the other end of the scale. When did you say you started diving?
I got my certification last year in the Netherlands. So I didn't do a lot of diving there until I came here. When I moved here, then I got more dives in.
So you dove in cold water.
Very cold. Yeah.
And now you're diving in Bonaire.
Yeah.
And you're new to diving. Can you talk to me about the experience that you had or learning or the difference between your recent learning of open water and what that felt like versus your Avelo diver experience?
Uh, the biggest thing I had was the buoyancy, to kind of stay neutral. And that was my biggest struggle. Still struggle with it. And I just, everyone says, you need a lot of dives. You kind of just have to get used to it. With experience, you get better. But with the Avelo, it's easy, you just pump or you purge and you feel it. You feel when you're neutral and you're good to go. And that is what I don't have with a BCD. So that was for me the biggest difference and the biggest advantage because it calms you down, makes it easier to do anything else that you need to do.
And Ingrid, you have your scientific background. You mentioned taking scientific measurements. What are the different ways that you see using the Avelo system, and how will it impact research dives?
I would say the Avelo has a huge potential to cut down on task loading. So when you're doing science diving, you might be carrying 7 different instruments on your VCD, and you have a lot that you have to manage. And like Serafina was saying, the buoyancy aspect is just set, and you're pretty much good to go for your entire dive. And so I see that as a really huge advantage when you're doing all of these things underwater that you don't actually have to worry about your buoyancy, and you don't have to worry about changing your buoyancy with your depth, which I think is a huge advantage that you can, go across the depth gradient, and not really have to mess with your system at all and stay neutral.
What is a scientific dive like?
It's very focused. It's very task oriented. You go in with a plan of data that you're going to collect. It can be a wide variety of things. You might be swimming along a tape measure that you put out for, 50 feet or so, and record all the fish you see, or you might be recording the invertebrates that you see. So it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And it can look like a lot of different things, but it's very focused. It's very data oriented. You have your data sheet and you're out there to record a specific observation.
In diving with other scientific divers, how do they look in the water as experienced divers? You're in the water a lot, but you don't have necessarily time to focus on developing your skills as a diver because you're focused more on the scientific skills that you're working on.
In my experience, scientific divers are very good divers because you simply have to have the basics down to be able to add all these additional tasks. But like I said, I really do think that Avelo could be a huge advantage to cut down some of that task loading that you're doing and not having to worry about buoyancy, not having all that bulk around you when you're already, a Christmas tree with all of your instruments that you might be carrying. But yeah, I mean, you can't a lot of people do actually go from open water into scientific diving, but to be really efficient, and collect good quality data, you really have to be tuned in and a really strong diver, to be able to do all of those things underwater.
Thank you for that insight, because I've seen some of the coral collection and some of the coral outplantings, and from that side of scientific diving. But and I've seen some here in Texas. We have the archaeological sites where people measure and they go in their squares, and you're staying put very patiently in your marked off spaces, not moving at all.
Mhm.
So there's certainly an aspect of that. Uh, as a course director, Kenny, you work with people who are very experienced divers quite a lot. And divers often say, my buoyancy is fine once I master the BCD. I heard Sarafina saying, oh, well, I was told that you have to have a lot of hours. And then once you get this, you figure it out. And her saying that the comfort with a water managed buoyancy system and the stability that provided was very different. Um, what do you think for advanced divers and very experienced divers, what this does for them?
That's a great question. I should tell you how I was introduced to the system to begin with. It was some high level people at the agencies themselves, as well as Liz Parkinson, who is the avatar person underwater. These people are all people, we all have thousands of dives. We'll dive in 3 different types of rigs in a day, in a week, we'll do dozens of dives and for decades. And so you kind of get to the point where you've seen everything and you just want like less hassle. And so when you're doing something underwater, the first part is you get good at it, right? And then there's this, I don't want to deal with the other stuff. I just want to do what I'm trying to do and get it out with as few little hiccups. Like Ingrid said, the task loading, you want to reduce that. And so anytime you can get a chance to cut down on task, the better. So people that already have their buoyancy down, that have it all figured out. I mean, all the people I'm talking with, so do they. And it's not about I got it. It's kind of like, okay, I got better at this, and now you're going to be able to take that high level skill and be even better because it freed you up to do more. So like kind of once you beat this level of the video game, it unlocked another level. And so for me, if you're shooting video and going up and down 15, 20, 30 feet, you're exhaling going up and so on, and you want to keep that shot clean without having to even touch it. And yes, you can do that pretty easily if you're good, but removing that allowed me to take another hand while doing wild depth swings and being a little more mobile, a little more free, a little less draggy. So it's just in a continuous, you get good at one thing and you can continuously enhance. And so you can get even better. So I guess that's the best way to explain it. It's always going to be hard to explain this to someone who hasn't tried it. I'll leave it at that.
Fair point. Thank you for that insight. We've talked a little bit about the diving part of the program. You took our specialty certification, which consists of 2 dives in 1 day. And before that, you have an e-learning component. But between your dives and after your dives, we also have something we call Avelo Mode. This is part of your dive log, and it's part of the educational curriculum. So everyone was shown what your dives look like, what your workload looked like, and what your workload looked like as it compared to your buoyancy and where you were buoyant during your dive, where you were comfortable during your dive, how often you were pumping or purging, which means how often you're adding water or letting the water out. Can you share with me what was the biggest eye opener about the Avelo mode for any of y'all?
It does it whoever wants to go first.
Yeah. Free for all.
Okay, I'll just take it and then segue in. What caught me off guard with the Avelo mode was how precisely it could show. I could see when we turned the camera on and swam around. I could see exactly when the turtle came up between us. You can literally watch. It's like seeing a history of your dive from an entirely different perspective. And you can see how much you are touching the system and how much exertion you're having and your air consumption rate, of course. Computers do that. It went way beyond that. So it's kind of like if you were diving in regular gear, it's like how many times you touched your inflator deflator. It's like how many times you wiggled. It's just different. So the Velo mode, I thought, made it fun. We were surprised. We kind of were like, I was taking this class in order to be able to go and test it out and everything. So I initially saw it as a little bit of an inconvenience, to be perfectly honest. And then it flipped. I also took it with Katie, and we both ended up having a lot of fun at the end looking at all those graphs. And that became the thing that we liked. It was one of our favorite things. So it completely flipped. And I think it brings almost a fun, it looks sciencey on the surface, like, oh my gosh, I have to look at all these charts and graphs and everything. But it actually became almost the cartoon, the fun part. And so it actually brought a bit of fun to it, even though it might not seem that way. That was what shocked me.
Yeah, I think for me, what stood out is that it's a really fantastic feedback tool for yourself after the dive to see all those metrics. And I think a great learning tool for people who are getting into diving and even experienced divers to kind of see where you're at. But what really stood out to me was once I got past, the certification where we were, of course, doing a lot of drills and messing with the purge a lot. When we were just doing full dives, how little you had to actually intake and output water into the system. So it was really cool to kind of see, wow, I really didn't have to touch my system almost at all during the whole dive and just got to enjoy it, which was really cool.
Yeah, it's a bit the same for me. When I was showed the graph and you can go for, oh yeah, this is when I did that skill, or this is when I did the other skill, and it just shows it very clearly, which is kind of surprising. Like you can actually pinpoint the moments, like this is when that skill started, or this is when it ended, this is when you pumped, and this is when you purged, and it was really cool to see.
Is there a statistic for you that was most meaningful or something as a diver going forward you find would help you as a diver? Something that you really value about that?
What I really enjoyed seeing was air consumption. To see, okay, when you first go down, it's a little bit more than when you get comfortable. And for me, you see between the first two dives, like the first dive, it took me a little bit longer to kind of reach that comfortable state. And then the second one, it was already better. So it got comfortable faster. And I enjoyed seeing that and seeing, okay, it's that you get more comfortable and that you pay more attention to like breathing slowly, like, okay, relax, inhale, exhale, and kind of makes you conscious of that. At least it did for me from the first to the second then.
Did anyone else want to comment on how it made them feel or what was personally valuable going forward?
Are we still talking about the Avelo mode or just in general?
The Avelo mode.
Okay. Yeah, no, I definitely I was impressed with that, but yeah.
I didn't know if there was a specific metric that will help you as a diver going forward. You've got thousands of dives. Is there something that's super useful for you in seeing that?
I mean, just going back to what I said, being able to go back and see more than just your air consumption, that you could really see your exertion and you know, like the others said, where, you know, when you hit the pump, how many times, and it became like, oh, I hit mine 3. Oh, I only hit mine 1. And you go, what was I doing there? Particularly on that first and second dive, you know, where you're still learning the system. It was interesting. And what I also found was you could see when there was a buoyancy correction. This goes to the pros out there who might be skeptical. One kind of hidden side benefit to this, not so hidden, is the improved air consumption. And it shows just by having your weight off by, it was like a pound or 2 before we got it just right. Part of the course is adjusting your weight just right on that first, you know, those first 2 dives. And it was wild to see that adjustment, that correction where you might be a little lighter, a little heavy, and then you shoomp, and you find that perfect sweet spot that you can then maintain for the rest of the dive. And you saw where we were doing a half a dive and we're like, you know what, let's fix that a little bit, and then boom, and then you watch that exertion improve and the amount that you're touching things reduce just by getting that 1 or 2 pounds. And I think one last thing I want to add about that was the part that I loved about Avelo Mode, but how it sort of ties into the whole thing and really the whole course, was how mindful you were of how everything you do affects buoyancy. How just a pound, a little piece of padding in the back, or adding that 1 pound weight, because it's that tiny, and it shows how much energy we're wasting in regular scuba gear. You know, I'll throw a few extra pounds just in case. It's like, wow, what 1 pound did. You know, diving a velo was nuts. And so it really makes people mindful of what their equipment changes and even switching different fins has on you. And I think the Avelo Mode sort of lets you bring a microscope to that and zoom in. So that's it.
Thanks. Ingrid, you talked about, so you're an experienced a scientific diver, and you talked about how some people come from open water directly into scientific diving, which is a specialty. What would you tell non-divers who are becoming scientists, and they're carrying their heavy tanks, and how diving and what the experience is and what they need to become a scientific diver? How would you talk to them about Avelo?
I would say that it's a really great tool to get into scientific diving and to be an effective scientific diver from the get-go. I think it's a great opportunity to be utilized for citizen science, to have divers who are really tuned in with the Avelo system, have really great buoyancy because of it, and then can effectively and safely contribute to a science project without, harming the environment with or buoyancy, or not being able to complete the tasks safely because they're still worried, and a lot of headspace is being taken up by buoyancy. So in that way, it's really exciting to me because it could open up a lot of doors for citizen science and for anyone to be able to kind of jump in to that world as an Avelo diver. Whereas with traditional scuba, in my opinion, going straight into it out of open water can add a lot of those tasks that maybe people aren't ready for to go into that specialty, where there can be so much um, that you have to be mindful of and take into consideration. There are certainly, projects that are suited to open water divers. I'm not saying that, but more complicated um, science diving or restoration or planting corals or anything that it might be, it could be a really great opportunity for.
Thank you. Sarafina, you work in a delicate environment. You have some of the coral planting projects in Bonaire, and you see tourism at large in an environmentally sensitive area. What does Avelo stand to do for helping the corals as it relates to tourism versus the impact that we're seeing with tourism today?
Yeah. what we see a lot is tourists with very heavy cameras, or and then they focus on getting the picture and maybe not focus enough on their buoyancy, making sure they're not touching anything, because any distraction and your buoyancy can fluctuate. So I think with an Avelo system, it will really help them a lot to be able to get the pictures that they'd like, but staying neutral and staying off the corals or not hitting anything, especially because they're trying to turn and go up and down and whatever. And with the Avelo system, it's a lot easier just to keep that neutral and go up and down without really going out of control, and still get that beautiful steady picture that they want, because that's usually where it kind of goes wrong. Then you see their flippers all up in the corals, or the camera is a little bit too low, and they're struggling to stay down there to get that picture. So I think in that sense it would help a lot to keep the environment safe.
You have a lot of macro photographers there in particular. It's known for its macro photography environment. And I shoot macro. I'm primarily a wide angle photographer, but macro divers are kind of like scientific divers. They stay in this very tiny area and don't want to move, which I applaud the patience. But that tiny subject is maddening. So I can only assume it would help if you're after a tiny subject to protect the broader coral, and to be mindful of that no matter what system you're diving. So for sure. Awesome. So Kenny, you've talked a little bit about, you've dropped a video that explains your experience for diving the Avelo system. And I know you've probably been busy since you did that. Have you had a chance to look in the comment section and see what surprised you in the comments maybe? And if there's any myths you'd like to debunk or any lessons you want us to learn from those comments?
I mean, it's a lot. I don't even know where to start. They're all over the place. I'm not really seeing any one particular more than I'm seeing, oh, it's batteries, catastrophic failure. What if your batteries go wrong? And then, what about buoyancy? What about, it's all there's a lot of things. I would say the one that kind of is that is funny is this solves a problem that didn't exist. Like I said, I have a truckload of problem that exists, and it's heavy, and it's draggy, and it's just improving it. It's not inventing a flying car. It's just going from a wagon to a car, in my opinion. It's just making everything easier and better. Why wouldn't you want to make anything better? But the biggest thing is I'm seeing is a lot of conclusions that are jumped to without trying it or really listening to or going and seeking out a little bit of that information. One that for me, I didn't put this on there, but what I have watched, we have ushered in hundreds of thousands of guests, and this is a common thing everywhere, but something we see in a perfect environment with guests from all around the world every single night. We do a couple dives most nights. Is most people, if they're not staying very practiced, buoyancy is definitely the big battle with the majority of people, and the biggest injuries are problems with that. If you dump all of your air, particularly people that are overweighted, they tumble and you only go down faster and faster. Or there's still people using the elevator button, or they lay into that inflator, they don't understand it, or they inflate to go up, a big no-no, and then they go rocketing up. I mean, we got trained to where we can kind of hear it, throughout the environment. Oh boy. And you look and you see the bubble missile going up. I mean, you can embolize in as little as 3 feet of water. So eliminating that big issue, taking that off the board, is that alone. I think Aviad said that in our first interview, when the insurance companies get a hold of this and they see the data, it might be a lot harder to insure regular scuba than this. Now, obviously, this is speculative, but I see that every night. And, it's a lot of people don't quite see that perspective of a snapshot of the whole diving world over and over and over again. week and month and year after year, you see the common denominators. And this takes a big one just right out. But the batteries, I have a battery in my dive watch right here, battery in the transmitter, battery in the camera, battery in the dive light. So that one's kind of funny, and it's a big one. It's easy to check, but if it fails, nothing terrible is going to happen, and you train for that in the course. Jennifer, you and I have already talked about it too. The tanks, the hydro tank, the materials they're made out of. If a tank were to fail, you always hear about those horror stories of a tank exploding. They don't blow the same way a regular like aluminum or steel tank would. And so there's just so many big things that are better about it. The little things are too, we could talk all night about, but I think everybody has the same reaction I did. Oh my God, what about this? What about that? What about that? Dig into each one of those things. Really flesh it out. Give it a chance. And I think, a lot of those little boogeymen go away when you turn the lights on.
I think a lot of the reaction comes from our frame of reference of what we already know about diving and the immediate and emergency response we have to have with our existing equipment. So to take that away is almost hard to wrap your head around, that all of a sudden, if any failure happens with the Avelo system, it's not a dramatic change. Nothing changes with your buoyancy. But if something does happen, and it's 5 seconds before a person's gone with one of those inflator hose or the stuck inflator hose,
they can just randomly freeze up and launch people up if they don't have. Most people don't know to disconnect it or hold that dump. It's just there's a panic and there's a reaction and there's a delay. So the majority of people don't. They're not going to react in time for that.
And it's the breadth of having everything from being able to talk with you as a new diver to Avelo diving to Sarafina, who's new to diving altogether. What would have helped you, Sarafina, for an instructor to talk to you about in diving as you've gone through your diving journey?
What would have helped me? I don't know. I think that the scariest thing is the risks associated with it. It's like Kenny said, you kind of hear a lot of horror stories of what can go wrong, and that kind of makes it scary to go for it. But if somebody kind of talks you through it and how to minimize it and kind of calms you down, then it does help. Kind of makes it easier, I guess, to go for it. But I love the water, so I was like, I want to do it either way. But I can imagine for a lot of other people, it's that risk that you kind of need to talk people through and how to minimize it, how to make it easier.
Is there a tip you can give new divers or to instructors who are teaching Avelo divers that you would love for the Avelo system?
I can't really think of anything now, because especially with the Avelo system, it's you just kind of feel it, when you go down or when you need to do those skills, it's easier. The best tip I can give is just try it, and then you'll see how easy it is, especially with the Avelo system, to control your buoyancy and see that those risks are minimized. But that's all I have.
It's just intuitive.
Yeah.
Don't dive it.
Exactly.
Ingrid, when we were trying to coordinate getting you on Let's Talk Avelo, you were on the other side of the planet. So working, was that in Australia at the time?
Mhm.
What were you doing in Australia?
I was working on a crown of thorns mitigation vessel. So we were going out on the Great Barrier Reef and doing culling of these starfish who have kind of are native, but have kind of taken over the reef and increased a lot of stress on the corals.
We have an Avelo Dive Center out there, Abyss Scuba Diving in Sydney. I don't know if you were in that area or if you were in Northern Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're expanding and we're entering Southeast Asia with Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, Taiwan. We've got a lot of destinations coming up. Um, does that excite you about the expansion and where do you want to see us go next?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see a Velo available in more places. I think it's could be such a benefit for, recreational and scientific divers like across all industries. Um, I would love to see it everywhere, to be available as an option to use. I think it would be really great. And just from the perspective of not having to carry all of your scuba gear while traveling, and just like the stuff that is necessary to be personal for you, it would be really awesome. But like Serafina was saying, in terms of having people have their buoyancy locked in, especially for photographers, and people getting into recreational diving, it could have such an incredible impact on reducing the environmental harm of scuba divers. So that really excites me.
And you're heading to California next to finish your PhD there.
Yes.
Where in California again is that? You said Santa Cruz?
In Santa Cruz, yeah.
So there's some diving off the coast there. We've got Avelo Dive Centers, Ocean Enterprises, Dive and Surf, and Catalina Diver Supply, which all offer Avelo diving. Where in the world do you want to see us go? If you could have a dream destination.
Oh, I don't know about that question, but when you were talking about where you want to see a Velo, um, be it this is not a place, but I would love to see it in universities. Universities make scuba diving a lot more accessible for young people like me, which is incredible. And we have some incredible dive programs at universities, and it'd be really great to have a Velo be utilized more for students who are getting into diving and making it so much more streamlined in that context.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. We would love to reach out to universities, and I know there are some dive centers like Captain Hook's Dive Center that has some university connections, and I think they'll talk to the Florida universities. But yeah, go. I'd love to see it in more programs.
Definitely.
Serafina, you're in a dream destination for many, and Dive Friends Bonaire just launched their signature Avelo diving experience, which is a dive package. Can you tell us what the signature experience is and what would be your dream destination for where you want to see Avelo go next?
Yeah, answer the first part of the question, which is the Avelo signature experience, which is like a week of diving Avelo. So you get your accommodation, you get a car so you can go to all the dive sites, and you get the red course to get certified. Then you get a boat dives, so you can try out the Avelo system along with a Avelo certified instructor that'll guide you on your guided dive so you can get used to the system. And then we also have guided shore dives with the Avelo system. So, you can get as many diving in as possible with the Avelo system so you can get used to it and really experience how amazing it is. And as for a dream destination, I know everywhere because it makes everything so much easier. And especially for people that want to try out diving but are scared for it. So the more places it's available, the more people can try it and then see that it is easier and you can really enjoy your dive with it. So I think just everywhere would just be amazing.
Penny, do you have any place in mind? Do you travel ever, or are you locked into Florida?
Oh gosh, no, we travel quite a bit. You know, I think we all want to see it as many places as possible. Particularly, I think this is very helpful for places like aquariums and stuff. For the obvious reasons I talked about a few minutes ago. But there's a bigger reason I think it would not only work for anywhere that might have guest programs, but really anywhere. And this was something I didn't really think about until I went back to thinking about my shop days and rental days. Is it's the same system everywhere. You can bring your own regs if you want to, and you can bring your own computers, of course, and your mask and your fins and all that. But it's the same system, finding, lugging around all that stuff sometimes, and being able to ditch the BC is a big deal. But having the exact same system everywhere and knowing where everything is and that muscle memory, I think is a bigger deal than people are giving it credit for. Because like if you learn on one here and you go there, you already know how to dive it. And so, I mean, we've seen people. I watch people regularly fumble with the BCs and then the buttons and the dumps and the weight's all weird, trim's all weird, and it's riding up funny and all that stuff. And getting rid of all that and having something you just kind of cinch it to your body and it adapts to anyone. I know there's a couple little variations. There's a smaller hydro tank, I think, but in general, it's really we're all kind of diving into the same thing, and it actually fits better that way. So that is something that really makes it make sense to show up all over the place. To me,
Yes. More broad reach and more locations. I think those confined water environments are overlooked a lot. And I think some of that is we don't know how to get connected with aquarium dives. They seem so remote. But I know here at the Texas State Aquarium, we rely on volunteer divers to maintain the tanks and to conduct some of their work. How nice would it be for your team to also be more comfortable and efficient at their diving and have less sort of impact on these small contained environments?
it would be really nice. It would be very efficient and clean, and it would just be it would be less stuff to lug around too. Tanks are heavy, and stairs are no fun in full scuba gear. So I think anywhere that is walking up and down and climbing in and out, I didn't really realize how much that average of a third weight drop really. I know in the class that brings us below a threshold where you start getting tired and it hurts and it's heavy. It's like you can walk around with a certain size backpack for a while before you really feel it, right? Like a little carry-on backpack or something. And then if you get too heavy after a certain point, there's I don't remember what the number is, but it was in that course where it does flip and it starts causing problems and aches and soreness and fatigue. And this kind of, in most cases drops it below that threshold, whereas scuba gear is above it. I just had to do a big walk today. I don't know if anyone's ever been to Blue Heron Bridge, but there was no parking, and even on a weekday today, and we were on the other side where the boat ramps were, and we had to walk all over the place. And even without wetsuits, it was still a lot of weight. So
Yeah.
uh,
I've done a few dives on the Velo and shooting with a Velo that in some of these environments, I carry a lot of stuff. I'm a technical diver. I carry my steel 108s. I'm still trying to sell my steel side mount tanks. Nobody wants them. Uh,
message me on the side if you want to.
Um, but I have experience with a lot of this equipment. And when I first started working with the Velo, we're Maui based, and they have this site called Black Rock that I've been telling a lot of people about, where you park in the garage for this resort. You get out of the garage, walk around the garage, walk through the resort, go through all the way to the beach. Then you walk across the beach, and I hate sand. It's not my friend, especially when you're carrying a camera that weighs 35 pounds all in and of itself. And then you have to walk across the expanse of the sand, and you have to be happy about it because you're working, and you have to be shooting and prepared and collected by the time you get into the water to start your dive. Never mind, you have to do that all again on the way back out. So, uh, personally, that was grueling. And I know Serafina was smiling when you said, when you have to hike steps because they have their famous 100 steps. Is it 1,000 or 100?
Steps.
100 steps?
Steps.
1,000 steps? Is it 1,000 steps?
It is not. No.
No. But I dove your 1,000 steps a few years ago, and then on Avelo I was diving. They just call it the steps in Australia. Okay, that it is a lot. In Australia, they also have something that they call the leap. So the Australians way under emphasize, like you guys say 1,000 steps, and it's significant. But when they just say the steps, like if they just said the store, I would expect like the biggest triple sized Buc-ee's on the planet from Australia. Because when they just say the something, it's ridiculous. And the leap is a one-way leap off of a cliff to get into the water with your kit to go. And then you dive and you get out at the steps and climb all the way back up. So I just know I've appreciated diving the Avelo system with all of these. Since you guys are fresh divers in the Avelo system, you should remember your first dive. Could you each let me know maybe a one-word description of that dive?
I've already mentioned it a little bit, but intuitive. That's my word for it.
I would say effortless.
Mine is the thing I'm always trying to get better at with diving, and that is clean.
Could you expand on clean for me?
Oh yeah, just you don't have all this stuff on you. It's just clean, like the buoyancy. I mean, you're everything is. You don't have all this excess. Like, there's always you got to have a little more weight for when your tank gets breathed down, and there's all this drag, and there's a little extra weight just in case, and then there's this, there's that. There's all that bulk and floof and but it's really the cleanliness, I think, is more rooted in the mindfulness that it almost forces people to be just a little more mindful and take that one step back before they get in and go, what am I wearing? And it's got that simple little formula you just do. It's fun, it's simple. But it creates a pause in the exactly the right spot, which is just right when you're building your gear. And it just sort of like it's kind of like if you ever really stop and organize your closet or your office area or whatever, and you really think about what do I really need? What am I going to use? And then you go out to the maybe sometimes, and then and suddenly you clean a lot of stuff that you didn't need. And I feel like it did that with the whole scuba rig. You just feel lighter walking down. So like I know it's a weird word to use in scuba, but clean. It's just cleaner.
It is a weird word because we're dirty.
Yeah.
I bet your trailer smells awesome right now.
I don't have a trailer, but I can tell you that my shorts I can already smell because the 2.5 hour ride home from being in the ocean earlier this afternoon. My shorts are still wet.
That was Blue Heron. That was not a spring.
No.
You still have to rinse everything off.
Oh yeah.
Oh. I know that we recommend divers in class when you're doing skills, and when we do the RAD specialty course, we put you through everything that you would need to know to learn to dive the Avelo system. All of the failures, all of the malfunctions. We have you pump and try to get heavy. We have you let all the water out. We have you go all the way up and all the way down. You're doing all of these tasks. And so it's very task loaded. So we always recommend people do additional dives following their course just to feel it. And I know you're all pretty new with diving Avelo, but do you have a favorite moment in your dives so far? with the Avelo diving? Is there something like a favorite moment, like you got in and you're just like, oh, look, there's a turtle and I'm hovering with it, or was there something that was just a
I have
favorite?
one. It's toward the end of the current video, and you'll see it a lot more in our podcast when we break it all down, the video. But there is one. It was at the end after the course when I was just having a fun dive, and I was just doing an action camera, and I went around and realizing how far I could go up and down without even touching an inflator or dumping anything. And Jennifer, you know this, when you're shooting video or photo, you got that perfect shot. You sometimes have to sort of sneak over and dump a little bit, and you're just kind of, or just a little like, and you're having to fin up a little bit to smooth those shots out. And that moment, I was able to do this big long shot with a camera. I didn't plan it. It wasn't part of it. I didn't know what we were doing that first day. But it was on the last dive. It was a fun dive. And I was like, hey, mind if I grab the GoPro? It wasn't a real pretty place or anything. We were just training. But I have a shot and I use it. It's toward the end of the video, and it's fast to slow where all these little fish swirl around. And there's the long shot where we go down and back up and then go through some people. And it's one continuous shot where I never had to touch a thing. And all I used were my lungs. And we're talking a 25, 30 foot almost spread of depth, without ever having to piddle with anything. And no matter how good you are, you're going to have to touch it a few times, and you don't realize how many times you touch it until you're not touching. You keep going, oh. I think that's what catches a lot of professionals off guard. I jumped right in the water and I was like, oh, what? Oh, right. And so you almost don't realize what you weren't doing, I guess, that's what caught me off guard. I was like, oh. But that big long moment with the video, and it will show up in future videos. It's not gonna, win any awards, but you can, if an eagle eye can see the depth ranges there, and I thought that was fun. That was cool.
Very cool. Ingrid, Sarafina, did either of you have any moments that you loved? I mean,
Yeah,
you were in Hawaii.
yeah,
All of it.
all of it, yes, of course. But I had a very similar experience to Kenny, where after my certification, I went out for an additional dive, and we were diving a wreck, the Sea Tiger 2, I think. And it's at around 90 feet, 30 meters, if I remember correctly. And like Kenny mentioned, you barely have to mess with your system, and you don't realize how much you're adjusting your buoyancy until you don't really have to adjust your BCD at all. So I kept finding myself, reaching for my inflator when I got in, or reaching for my inflator when I was, descending or ascending, and realized that I didn't have to mess with that at all. And on that dive, I ended up bringing a camera, and I just got to focus on the photography and didn't have to focus on the gear at all. Like as I was descending, usually you're preparing to get to the bottom and, adding a little air into your system, making sure you're staying neutral. Didn't have to worry about that, could just be focusing on my rig the entire time that I was descending, and was ready to go. So for photographers, for videographers, it's such an advantage to not have to worry about that. And the buoyancy across depth is amazing, especially like Kenny was saying for video.
I love how joyous you were in reliving that moment. Both of y'all. I mean, you're like, it's nothing special. It's just a bunch of really cool fish in the spring. And you're like, oh, this was just great. I had some freedom. I just love how happy you guys are about the experience.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it was so freeing. Like that was the other word that I was thinking of, was just freedom when you're using the system, because it's basically nothing. You can feel that it's so much less weight than a traditional scuba system, and it almost feels like you are freediving. That was my first impression when I used the system, is it just felt like you were freediving, like you almost didn't have anything on your back, which was amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did you want to add anything, Sarafina?
Uh, For me, it's when you feel that you're neutral. It's like if you have to pump or purge, you feel the exact moment when you're perfect. And that is, I've never really had that with the BCD before. But with Avelo I did, and it's this moment where like, okay, I'm perfect now, and you stay perfect, and I love that.
Awesome. Who needs to try Avelo? Who do y'all think really should get into Avelo?
I mean, obviously, it's going to help new divers a lot. But who needs to try it now are the professionals and the skeptics, because it's very few people tried it properly, and in some cases, like you have to do it and actually really dive with it. But I'm not seeing everybody who's tried it like goes on and writes these huge things. They come into the comments and say, "Hey, I've tried it." I haven't seen any big complaints from people that have actually gone through the class. Like all those little myths are busted. But I think right now the professionals really need to take a look. Dive shop owners, resort owners, charters, because they're the access point and they're driving the narrative. And so, and it was professionals that convinced me, because a lot of us, if we've been doing this for a while, yeah, we've seen it all, and we have our routine, and it's very easy to have finally mastered this and figured it all out, and then go, wait, what? A new thing? I just learned the old operating system. I don't want another update, but this is a big good one. This is one of those only comes around every 20 years kind of things. And so I think everybody should try it. I mean, the new divers are going to benefit instantly, but as far as making this show up everywhere, particularly in remote areas where we want to, see it, it's already shown up in the big destinations, but there's a lot of other little places. And I think that's who needs to jump on this right now. You also don't want to be left behind.
Did you have any thoughts, Ingrid or Sarafina?
I agree with Kenny. New divers will just immediately see the benefit in it. And then the ones that are skeptical or are not sure about it should just try it, and then you can see what you find.
We want more people to be able to get into diving altogether. I mean, I think Kenny opened us up talking about the number of divers in the world and how many people aren't aware of what's underwater. Imagine what we could do for our underwater environment if everyone could see and love it and, have fun and appreciate it, and how connected we could be. I think dive centers would all benefit from having their customers have better experiences. And I think we all want to offer an improved experience, and that's why we're all here this evening, is to share what our experiences have been. I appreciate everybody taking time out of your very busy schedules to connect with us this evening. I want to make sure that everyone's heard and we're connected. I don't think any of y'all had met prior to this webinar either. So we've crossed a few time zones, and I look forward to sharing this on YouTube. If you want to see where we're diving, we have on diveavelo.com, find a dive center where you can look up dive centers. We have events happening, and the Avelo tour is something that we're running, especially throughout the United States, but we are coming to Eldora Divers August 2 through 9 in Cozumel. So the Avelo system is coming to Mexico in a big way, and we're looking forward to that event. It's new, and people are coming on board, and they are wanting to be the first to offer this experience and to be able to benefit from being one of the people that people go to for diving Avelo. I know, particularly with Bonaire, but we've talked to divers who have planned their entire vacation trips around all of the destinations. that are up and coming with Avelo, and they were like, well, I've got the next 5 years planned. I'm going to go here to this dive center for this trip, and Bonaire is always on that list, um, as you would expect. But some of our other dive centers, like I've really enjoyed diving in Catalina Diver Supply with the kelp. It really is beautiful out there, and look forward to some of the new destinations we have coming up, particularly in Southeast Asia. So thank you all very much for your time this evening. We didn't really have a lot of questions, but I did see in the comments Rusty has joined us, and he's talking about his experience at his dive center, and he's right there cheering along with you guys, like, yes, 100%. When people come in, light comes on, and they love the control that they have, and he says the pros appreciate that, as Russ Neal says often, when I leave my students there, I turn around to help the student, and I turn back, my students are still there. So people are enjoying this. And Rusty, in the comments, if you can just remind me which dive center you're with. I know he's working on a program as a Naui dive center, so that they're teaching Avelo, and he says that they're taking the advanced course on Avelo. So people do their open water and they do their Avelo, and then they're learning their advanced open water scuba course on the Avelo system, which really helps you focus on those skills. Louisville Dive Center, of course. Yes. They have you guys have a presence in Florida as well as Louisville. Super cool. So we're very excited to have them on board. And does anyone have any questions or last thoughts? And if you're up for it, can you close us out by finishing Avelo will reshape diving by ... What would you say to that?
I'd say simplifying it.
Fantastic.
I would say creating accessibility and streamlining scuba system.
I would say minimizing risk.
Yeah.
Those are all profound. Thank you very much. It's great at hearing your insights. I told Kanye, and he eye rolled at me. I was like, it's like an Avelo Anonymous. We get to all share our stories and get to talking about it. I've talked with Kenny at some length and bent his ear just about scuba diving in general. You know, we go to these dive shows and we nerd out on all of the finer points of scuba diving, and we're excited to dive. We're excited to talk about it. I was talking with Ingrid. As dive professionals, you would think we're in the water all the time. No, we just wish we were. We're in the water more than the average diver, but not as much as we'd like to, because unfortunately we still need the tank on our back. We don't have the gills. It's not water world. And we do have to come in front of the computer quite a bit to get our work done.
True.
But I love everyone that joined tonight. Thank you very much. Stay tuned. We'll put some links in when we publish this on YouTube. And if you have any last minute comments, let me know. And it just seems like everyone's enjoyed listening to you guys this evening. We don't have any questions.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
All right. Good night, everybody. Sarafina, Ingrid, Jennifer, you've been awesome. Hope to see you soon.
Likewise.
All right.